Hello everyone and welcome back. A while back, Creative Assembly said that they were working on a DLC for next year, which, as they state, is going to be one of their biggest DLCs ever created for the trilogy, which is going to include some free content also. They're going to confirm some of it in the 25th anniversary showcase, which is later this year, but I've been thinking about this since the blog dropped a while ago, because this could be the rumored End Times DLC. We've spoken about this in the past, but I've actually got a lot more ideas now, so we're going to be doing this again, a bit more structured. Before anything, I don't think this is going to be the last DLC for Total War Warhammer. I know there's a lot of people thinking it's doom and gloom right now because there's just no information coming out. But hear me out and let's talk about it, right? But before anything, a big thank you to our sponsor, Instant Gaming. Instant Gaming is a platform where you'll be able to buy games at discounted rates. Gaming is expensive, and it looks like it's going to be even more so. I'm not sure if you guys saw the price of the next expansion for WoW. £90 for the Epic Edition. Yeah, wild, isn't it? So, it's always best to get a good discount, and Instant Gaming is the platform that I myself have been using to get some pretty sweet discounts on various different games. I was able to save a lot of money on the whole collection for Stellaris, for example, and the deals just keep getting better and better. Not only that, but we do have our monthly giveaway going on. Win the game of your choice. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below and sign up. You don't even have to make a purchase. Making a purchase through my other special link, also in the description below, supports the channel at no extra cost to you. I've been working with this company for over a year now. I like them. The business relationship seems pretty good, and it's something that I use myself. It's always the most important thing. If I'm going to take a promotion, it's because it's something that I use and I'm comfortable talking about on the channel. So thank you once again to Instant Gaming for the sponsorship. Now let's return to our regularly scheduled programming. Okay, so before we jump into the actual content that I expect, it's important to note here they're saying that it's their biggest DLC, but before that they've already said that they're going to be doing some smaller, more targeted style DLCs. So I would imagine that this hypothetical End Times DLC won't be like the others, where we've had like Omens of Destruction, Thrones of Decay. The format there was 1v1v1 alongside a more or less even amount of content per faction. Sometimes it's like 1 unit difference between them, which is perfectly fine. In all honesty, it works pretty well. But since they are going to be doing something different for this hypothetical single pack DLC until we actually get it announced, we have to temper expectations. Well, I could see them doing something very different with the End Times, the possible End Times DLC, in an effort to make it more value for money, but also try something really big. If it is going to be the End Times DLC, they need to kind of hit the narrative a little bit, despite how bad the narrative was for the End Times. It's just one of the worst, like seriously worst campaigns that Games Workshop ever released. It's atrociously bad. When I spoke about a possible End Times DLC last year, I thought it was going to be 3 factions, which I said NAGASH, SKAVEN, and NURGLE. And I still think that those factions would still fit in, but if it's going to be the biggest DLC that they've ever made, I could see this being elevated to 4 or possibly 5 factions, which it wouldn't be as even with order versus chaos and stuff. But again, I'm expecting a lot of chaos, I'm expecting a lot of undead, so this is how I could see it being done now. So once again, still Nurgle. Nurgle's got a very, very big point in the End Times, and they're missing a lot of the End Time stuff right now, whereas Khorne is practically done now. Then with the SKAVEN, we'll get into all the individual ones in a second when we start going in race by race. Then NAGASH, so that gives us technically 2 Chaos factions, because during the End Times, SKAVEN kind of lined with Chaos, even though they were gearing up to betray them, and then they never did. 1 Undead faction, which I think could benefit a lot of other factions. And then there needs to be some Order factions. Here is where I'd say Boris Todbringer finally getting his day. You might be wondering, well, why would that work now? Creative Assembly have kept teasing Boris and then that never happens. But it would make a lot of perfect sense just to wait for an End Times DLC. It's one of these things where Middenheim and Midland in general is so important for the End Times, because the last Chaos Gate is over there. It literally ends there because, like, you know, they need to open up that gate, which then allows all the warp to go through. The Chaos Gods come in and destroy the world, and then there's like 5 different ways on how they destroyed the world because Games Workshop inconsistent writing. So this would probably be the best time just to introduce the Cult of Ulrich, and that takes us to 4 factions. Why a 5th? Well, they'll probably want to jump in with another part of a CATHAYan DLC. Could be the Monkey King, could be Li Dao, could be Yin Yin. I imagine Yin Yin will be for something else though. So I'm thinking Monkey King. The reason why is they know that CATHAY DLC sells well. we know that Games Workshop and Creative Assembly are wanting to push CATHAY. Hell, Games Workshop, with the release of CATHAY on the tabletop, have written in a bunch of lore just to make them, you know, they were always there, and this is how they were always active with the other factions. They were never really isolationist, blah, blah, blah. It's changed a lot of lore that we knew. Well, we didn't really know that much about CATHAY anyway, so this is just kind of adding them in, slotting them in as, you know, they were just slightly to the left. It would also make sense to get the perspective of what the hell has actually happened to CATHAY during the End Times. It would be a bit of a rewrite, because in the original End Times lore, Grimgor gets roided out on beast magic, takes over the ogres, and then I don't know, man, he just fucks over the rest of the east of the world. Like, seriously, just slams down CATHAY and Koresh and the rest. It was like a small footnote, but, you know, they were trying to finish off the series at that point. So this would be the perfect time to rewrite that section. Kind of say, like, yeah, you know, the Monkey King decided to join up with the Cathayan dragons to fight back the Chaos Hordes that were fighting through the Great Bastion. The Bastion might have even been destroyed, because if the Auric Bastion was destroyed, and that was based on, like, really raw magic, then I imagine Grand Cathay's Bastion would also have fallen, also with the Hordes of Chaos just rampaging through. Now, a DLC like this is perfectly possible, especially as we know that they can do the bundle system that we've seen through Omens of Destruction, where you don't have to buy all 5 of them. You can just buy 1, 2, 3, whatever you want, the characters that might be the most interesting. But it definitely incentivizes more sales, because you'd probably get a better discount for buying 4 or 5 of them. And it basically counts as passive income for Creative Assembly, because if you just buy, say, for example, the NAGASH one at launch, you might buy the NURGLE one later down the line because you want to play some NURGLE and you want some new troops to play around with, or some new mechanics, or just a general new lord. I think this is the scope that they could potentially go for, and to be honest, I would see myself being hyped up for something like this. Now, it could just be different factions, but I feel like if they're going to do story points, it's going to do better for them. The End Times, while it is very controversial, it's a big story point, and it's the best way to implement NAGASH and the rest. So we're going to talk about the content, possible content now, and we're going to go section by race and so on, because I feel like that's going to be the best way to go, right? So NURGLE would be similar to what I spoke about in the past. The Glockkin is a legendary lord. This is the big boy, which is actually 3 characters in one, a very, very good kit. Only released during the End Times, and now is in Age of Sigmar, which is a bit of a shame, because a lot of these units would be great for the old world, but you never know for the future. So hybrid, melee, spellcaster, monstrous unit, absolutely awesome. So it'll be a bit of everything. Think like Kugath, but a lot faster and a lot more deadlier in melee. Then a unit with the Putrid Blight Kings, again, a unit that was introduced during the End Times, now usable in Age of Sigmar. We could easily see multiple variants come in, because they were a mixed unit in the tabletop, so you could have them with additional hand weapons, well, technically, because of the mutation, you could have them with sword and shield, you could have them with great weapons. It'd be great to see them just having all the options. Again, it would be great to see them being able to be upgradable from Chosen, but I very much doubt it, because the Khorne ones can't, despite the fact that the NURGLE ones from Thrones of Decay can. You might be saying, well, NURGLE's already had another DLC, why are they going to get another one? Well, it's just, unfortunately, NURGLE did get a lot of attention during the End Times, and that is what is missing content. I mean, in a better option, you'd have them being a mixed unit, but I feel like Creative Assembly likes splitting them up, and that could potentially be better, because in some cases you want certain units with sword and shield only, or you want them with great weapons because it just kind of fits the theme better with NURGLE. Maybe you want them with additional hand weapons. It's an odd thing. Mixed units I don't feel work well. I find them very strange in the tabletop also. This Motley Crew rule is, I mean, it's interesting, but it's still kind of odd. The next thing would be the Great Spine Chaos Beast. This isn't specific to NURGLE, but it's something that we've known has been kind of leaning towards NURGLE for a while, because in the Warhammer 3 official art book that launched around the same time of the launch of Warhammer 3, you know, back in the day when it was just Realm of Chaos, there was artwork of that and it was just tinted green, so it's likely that they were just kind of preparing for that. In a perfect world, what they could do is have like tinted variants for each of them, so you could get one for Khorne, you could get one for Tzeentch, just with the different markings. I don't think visually they'd change much. There was only one interpretation of the model, and that's pretty much it. It would be nice just for every Chaos faction to get a unit. I mean, it's not really compulsory, but I feel like a big, fast-moving monster for everyone would be nice. So if it's just a basic mark, cool. That kind of works. If not, just for NURGLE is fine, because they're really lacking on speed. I mean, obviously now the Rot Knights do bring in the speed, but this one should be, in theory, a lot faster, because it is a highly mutated Chaos Warhound. this is something that I kind of just expect for the case of, you know, the artwork's done. It's clear that the work's been done for it. I don't think it can really fit anywhere else unless they're going to do some sort of Beastmen DLC, and even then the theming is a bit odd. I feel like there's a lot of other stuff that they could use for Beastmen DLC. The next thing I'd say is a legendary hero, and the problem is here, Magath Riders would be awesome. There's 3 of them. They were all introduced during the end times. Yes, this was a time where a lot of content was introduced for NURGLE, which is fantastic. I don't know if the term gorgeous models is a great idea for NURGLE. They're great. They're just, you know, kind of weird in that case. But I definitely feel like it would be a massive shame if they didn't introduce this mount in one way, shape, or form. One is fine. Maybe they could turn it into a unit also. So you get a legendary hero version, and then you end up getting a monstrous cavalry version, which would be maybe 8 models, maybe even less. It would just be a massive shame not to see this implemented. The last thing to talk about is Gutrot Spume. Now, originally, I said in a video close to a year ago that I would like to see Gutrot Spume as a legendary lord alongside the Glockkin, so 2 legendary lords for NURGLE. We now know from the Omens of Destruction DLC that that doesn't really matter too much. So he leads the Putrid Blight Kings. He's like the leader of them, right? Leads the NURGLE Navy and so on. But it falls in the same line as the Scaramore issue. So Scar Bloodwrath should have been a legendary lord. I still stand by it, but he was made into a legendary hero with his tribal units being just like really elite units, and that's it. I could see Creative Assembly doing the same thing, and you know what? That could work perfectly fine, because at the end of the day, yes, the map is getting congested. Even if we do get map expansions, it's still going to be very, very full, and going from 3 legendary lords for NURGLE to 5 will start to feel very noticeable, especially when other factions might only have 3. And right now, Tzeentch has 2. The big question here is, you know, they've said stuff about lords and heroes, but I doubt we're going to get more lords and heroes now. I mean, in a perfect world, they could finally give us the fat Chaos Warrior that everyone wanted as a lord option, maybe in the form of a buffer lord that's just devoted to NURGLE. Keep in mind that we've kind of had that with the Blood Speaker for Khorne, so we could have a buffer / just melee powerhouse with a great axe. And yeah, they could just easily call it a Blight Lord. You know, that's something that was the unit champion for the Putrid Blight Kings, and I think that's something that can be done. We've seen this before, where unit champions for the Monogod stuff has been turned into units of its own right, or heroes in its own right, so this could work out quite well. Yeah, I mean, this is what I can see for NURGLE. It's one of those packs which is going to be a little bit smaller than the rest. Maybe they could find some other units just to kind of fluff things up, but I doubt it at this point. There's really not that much left for NURGLE, unless they do like Pox Chariots or something, and even then, there's not much of a need for that, especially since it doesn't really work with the new version of the Rot Beasts, so yeah. Skaven would be simple enough. You know, you've got access to Fanquil, which everyone's kind of expecting for. He's got a big point at the end times. He would be mounted on Bone Ripper. In a perfect world, what we could see is a leveling up system, or kind of like a Daniel system for Bone Ripper, where you'll start off with a basic augmented Rat Ogre and work all your way up to this super version of the Storm Fiend. And when you get to the bigger version, that means that you could switch around the weapons and so on, because you had that choice during the end times, and I think you still have that choice in Age of Sigmar. I'm not too sure. I don't really play Age of Sigmar anymore because the Old World is finally released, and that's really what I'm really interested in. Fanquil is a character spellcaster and so on. He could be anywhere. They could even make him some sort of a horde faction. Knowing Creative Assembly, they'll just give him a teleport mechanic though. Now, don't expect a lot with the SKAVEN, because I just don't see that much coming in. I could see all 6 different variants of the Storm Fiends coming in. I think there were 6. Yeah, I had to go check just in case, because yes, there are 6, and this would mean a lot of augmented Rat Ogres essentially. I know a lot of people wouldn't be too keen on this, but yeah, Storm Fiends were very, very popular in the end times. Most specifically, the Rattling Gun ones. They were horrendously overpowered. 3 to 6 shots each model, and yeah, they didn't really have a lot of ways to misfire, which was very, very, very broken. God, I missed the End Times rules just specifically for that. It was ridiculous rule sets, but yeah, they were really good. I was the SKAVEN main back then. Yeah, you'd have melee ones, you'd have range ones. I think that this could work out quite well. It basically gives you 6 units off the bat, and I expect this just kind of being it. There's not really a lot of missing SKAVEN stuff, barring a lot of Clan Pass and stuff, and I'm kind of hoping that there'll be some form of mini DLC for that later on. Who knows? We're going to have to wait and see. Alongside this, we would have the Vermin Lords, which could be done as a Lord option, very specific, maybe in the form of a new form of right to be able to unlock them, kind of like what you do with the Slann Mage Priests, because there shouldn't be a lot of Vermin Lords. It's very obvious because these are like greater demons. So I feel like that's probably going to be the best way to go around it. I don't want to see a random chieftain just transforming into a Vermin Lord. Like, it makes sense for a Chaos Warrior Lord to turn into a Demon Prince, but not so much this random chieftain who's just pissed himself to death. I could see them implementing all the different types of Vermin Lord and just going like, yeah, you're not getting a lot of new style units, but what you're getting is bulk of unit variants. Some people might be keen on that, some people might not. It's just the Skaven have already had a fair amount of DLCs. But this could work, because that means that you could get a Vermin Lord that's a spellcaster, a Vermin Lord that's more melee focused. It will take a while, I'd say like a 15-turn refresh. I think that's what it is for the Slann. And I'm expecting more or less that type of format. Then Legendary Heroes, they could easily just go, here is Screech Verminkin. This would allow for a Legendary Hero usable from all the Skaven factions, because right now it's just like, I think Molder, It just might be Molder. And hell, if they wanted to be extra nice, they could just add in Squeal Nortooth and go, here's another legendary hero. That's it. There's no more Skaven content, barring a potential Clan Pestilence DLC. And even then, that's going to be relatively small, which is why I think it fits this potential format that they're going to be doing with Neferata. So, smaller, but it basically gives you all the heavy hitters. You get the character that you wanted, that a lot of people have wanted. You get the units that a lot of people have wanted, and you get the Vermin Lords. I think this is perfect for the Skaven. That's pretty much it. You can start anywhere too. This is the great thing about the Skaven. They might go for a lore-friendly start position because a lot of characters that were introduced in Warhammer 3 are actually starting more or less where they would start off in the end times. So this could work. But yeah, literally could be anywhere. There's not much to say about the Skaven. I think everyone's just kind of in agreement that there is not a lot left. Don't get me wrong, I'd like Giant Rats, but I think that Wolf Rats kind of take that unless they do a swarm for them, and even then there's not much that they can do with that. I think the Skaven have been in a very good place just because of the sheer amount of love that they got in Warhammer 2, because they were a base game faction there, and then they ended up getting, what, 3 DLCs? They got a lot of attention. People were getting sick of Skaven DLC, but it's been a while and now everyone's kind of refreshed on that and they want Skaven DLC again, myself included. We've been following a very similar format as the video last year when it comes to this, and I think it's going to be the same here for Nagash because, I mean, Nagash is a Legendary Lord, Morghast as a unit, and then possibly a hero option, or maybe a dedicated Lord. Hell, if they wanted to go even further, just make it a Lord and a hero and a unit. Make them a little bit different, of course, but it might be a bit weird considering that these are now used by the Bone Reapers, I think, when it comes to Age of Sigmar. And that's got its own theming now. It's super, super weird. And then just to kind of add some stuff in, get some of the special mounts there for Arkan and Neferata, who at that point I'm imagining is going to be in there, and Manfred too. I think that this could work. The thing is, and this is something that I'm going to be very vocal about, I'm not saying mods do better here, it's just the Nagash mod is very, very good. They're going to have to top that. And it's something that I feel like can be done with enough budget. Obviously, vision has to be a big thing though. Like, I could imagine the same thing like as the mod in that sense. Nagash starts off weakened, maybe starts off on his throne, then starts becoming like the husk version, and then evolves into the final form. Would be a pseudo-horde because he technically would have the Black Pyramid following around him, because at a certain point that Black Pyramid starts moving. You should have access to all 3 undead factions. This is something that was in the tabletop. In the tabletop, you only had access to 2 because the Vampire Coast didn't have rule sets for the end times, but you could mix up Vampire Counts and Tomb Kings, and I feel like it could work in a very similar devotion system to Daniel, but uncapped. So you'd have a devotion system, well, it'd be called something else, like, I don't know, enslavement or whatever, right? Let's just call it that. And you would build up those bars. As you build that up, you get access to more Tomb Kings, you get access to more Vampire Counts, and you get access to more Vampire Ghost, meaning that you could have the perfect hybrid force. And hybrid forces have been here in the game for a while. Daniel was, I guess, the first hybrid force where he was able to get demons from all 4 factions. And then you've got like the Warriors of Chaos, which are Champions of Chaos. Archeon, Kolek, and Sigvald are able to pick up units from each devotion and also Undivided. And that stuff is really, really cool. I think that stuff will add a lot of flavor and it would make a lot of sense. That rule set was pretty interesting for Nagash. Not a lot of people used Nagash in the tabletop, mostly because he was like about 1,000 points during the end times. But when you did, I mean, if you knew how to use him well and with the summons and so on, you could basically bring in units from every different thing and you could overwhelm your enemy. They could also have like an unlock mechanic there, so as you're building up this enslavement, you'll be unlocking the other legendary lords and characters from all the different factions. Meaning that by the end of the game, you could have Luthor Harkin fighting alongside Vlad von Carstein or this, that, and the other. Arkin the Black would also be able to join you. Now, what I would say here is there has to be a strict divide. Cetra cannot be confederated or even recruited. But the rest of them are fair game because it just makes sense for them to go that way for that. Yeah, I mean, that would be kind of fun. I mean, we've seen that with like the mod 2 in a different interpretation, but I think something like that would be very, very good. There wouldn't be a lot here, unfortunately. Like, they could add in Prince Apophis in an effort to add in a legendary hero, but there's clearly not a lot that would come here, right? In terms of possible units and stuff, there's just not really a lot missing. And since we know that there's likely going to be a Vampire Count DLC on the way, I can imagine that the last remaining Vampire Count stuff is going to be with Neferata. I don't know if there's a possibility for a Tomb King one. I think there is, but it all depends on how Creative Assembly see the scope for the game in its potential future. I think the value for this part of the DLC, which would be purchasable by itself, would have to come from Nagash himself. Like, he has to be one of the most unique campaigns we'll ever see in Total War Warhammer, and that will then allow for, you know, the justification of whatever price it is. I imagine it will be the same kind of pricing as we've seen so far. So, for example, if we look towards Skulltaker, it's €9 as I can see on Steam. So, if you're not getting 2 lords, or a lord, a hero, a legendary lord, another legendary hero, and a bunch of units, but you're getting something a little bit more centered, if it's a very, like, awesome campaign, they can justify the price. I think. Now, don't chew me out here. It's just there's really not a lot they can do. But if they can make it a really fun campaign where you've gone to the end and gone, God damn it, that was amazing. I want to play again. Like that could be done. That's the only way I can see this being justified. Okay, the Empire. And this one's going to be so much easier to talk about because we have an army list. So the Army of Midland, literally just from Storm of Chaos. Creative Assembly do have permission to use the Storm of Chaos stuff. So basically, Legendary Lord would be Boris. And I know some people would be like, oh, well, why some DLC for Boris? He's already in the game, blah, 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 blah. I understand that, but keep in mind that this has been done before where we've had DLC for characters already in games. It happened to Cao Cao and Yuan Shao in Three Kingdoms, which was Fates Divided, and it worked out quite well. And I think that could be perfectly fine here. So, simple. Boris as the Legendary Lord, brand new mechanics, proper voice acting, all the usual stuff. Art Ulrich as the Legendary Hero to give you a warrior priest type of thing. Grandmaster as a Lord, which I know people might find surprising, but the idea here is the Grandmaster would then be able to dedicate themselves to different knightly orders. We've seen already dedication working with the Warriors of Chaos, and it would work the same way. You get a basic Grandmaster, and then you would buff them up after they hit a certain level with some gold or whatever, right? This would be usable by all the factions too. And then a Warrior Priest of Ulrich as a hero. Seems perfect enough, right? You'd get a Battle Priest there. Like, I know some people would be saying, oh, what about a Priest Lord and so on, but I kind of like the idea of having it as a hero and then having a Grandmaster for everyone, right? Like, everyone would be able to use the Warrior Priest of Ulrich anyway, but it's just having something which will focus around cavalry stuff, which, I mean, Creative Assembly have been introducing a lot of knightly orders lately, so it would just be kind of nice. Then you've got some unit options here, so some Tutorage and Guard, the Knights of the White Wolf, which is about time if we would get them. So the Knights of the White Wolf would be mounted, you know, great weapons, wolf hammers and so on, whereas the Tutorage and Guard would be on foot, plate armor, you know, they'd be very good. They'd be an alternative to great swords, effectively using the same type of weaponry, as per the rules of the tabletop and so on, unless they decide to go Wolfhammer and Shield for something different, because technically you could use them as one-handed weapons. It was just, well, not really, but like the kit was just like one-handed. There was only the leader, the character for the Knights of the White Wolf that had the great weapon. It's just odd. That kit was really old, and the fact that it's still usable again, I mean, it's a nice model box, but it's still kind of annoying. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. Then, for some other stuff, you know, you've got access to hunting hounds. I think a lot of people have been wanting hunting hounds for a while. They do exist in the Warhammer world. Dogs do exist. And I think that would be kind of cool, getting the Empire some dogs. Hell, they could even go one step further. If you buy this DLC, they could also give the hunting hounds to Bretonnia, because Bretonnia does have truffle hounds. It'd be exact same model, maybe with a bit of different tintage and so on, but the idea is like, oh yeah, you know, this benefits another faction. And then they could do something for Wolfkin and Wars of Ulrich, a bit of a reskin. It's something that we've seen before. We've had DLCs that have done this, like Alfarian, he's got some unique units specifically for him, so we could see that happening once again. And yeah, that gives you pretty much what you want from Ulrich. Maybe a big wolf mount would be kind of cool. I mean, we know that that's a thing in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, but we don't know. The extent is a good word here. That Creative Assembly can jump into that and take from that source material, because that gets approved by Games Workshop too, and we've seen stuff being taken from that, and mostly in the form of references, but wolf mounts would be kind of cool. I don't know. I doubt it. It would be nice. Either way, this would get you the list that everyone's kind of been hoping for, you know. You'd be getting some really cool stuff with the Form of the Priest. You'd be getting Boris finally having his day. And Midland is oddly very popular. I've seen quite a few Midland painted armies since the Old World release too. So yeah, it would just be nice to get that hype going. Those units are available in the Old World now too, so it's the perfect cross-promotion. It's just weird that they haven't done anything with it yet. Honestly, it's been really weird that there's not been that much cross-promotion between, well, barely any cross-promotion between Old World and Total War Warhammer, barring like a few things a few years ago, and that's it. Finally, Grand Cathay, and well, there's no images or references that we can use here, mostly because, you know, Cathay is still very, very, very fresh. There's not a lot of information of what could be done for Cathay, but I would say this is the perfect time to introduce the Monkey King, like I said, because they could do the Monkey King, Monkey Lord, Monkey Hero, and then some monkey units, right? I mean, it just makes sense. We know Monkey Warriors exist. We know all that type of stuff exists. It'd be like a mini race pack. I could, in theory, see this being a bit more expensive than the others. So, like, all the other packs are like €9. I could see this going up to like €12, which I think when you translate that to pounds, because my Steam is euros, unfortunately, at the moment, it would be like a tenner. But yeah, just like a little bit of monkey stuff. Like in a perfect world, we'd get a mini race pack worth of monkeys and so on. But I doubt that's going to happen. I doubt that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to get any more race packs. You never know. They could surprise us, which a lot of things have been coming up as surprises, you know, like Warhammer 3 as a whole has been a surprise. But the Mountains of Heaven are in the game. They just need to be opened up. And then, yeah, there you go. You've got a start position. You've got a bunch of potential things to do. This is the weird thing, right? Because we've seen a decent amount of Cathay now in Total War. We have seen next to nothing when it comes to the tabletop, and by now, people were expecting, you know, the Cathay books to have a little bit of information of what we could expect in the future. And there is, by the way, if you look through the artwork and so on, there's very clear hints about the future, such as, like, this Guan Yu-styled sentinel, so probably Saitong's cousin or whatever, you know how it is. But there's not really a lot of word about anything else, and we know through interviews, like, dragon monks exist. That's something that could be used. We know that there is like a engineer-type hero, which would be nice. I believe a War Artificer was the name. Who knows, maybe some of the content that came from hypothetical leaks in the past could actually end up here too. An easy win would just be the Monkey King, to be honest. The Monkey King and then just some Monkey Warriors. It adds into everyone else, and in general, I think people would be hyped up for that. I think they've seen it with the some Wukong game that came out too. A lot of people like the Monkey King stuff. I think that would be a good educated guess, and we're just going to go with that. There's not much I can talk about here because it's just... I was hoping we'd have a full army book for Cathay at this point rather than the journal system. But yeah, you never know. We know that there's a second book coming out for Cathay soon, but unfortunately no new units have been confirmed, so... gotta wait until we can paint up a Moonbird, I guess. Okay, now free stuff. So... in a perfect world, and I do imagine that Creative Assembly would do this to celebrate all that they've made from Total War Warhammer 3, well, in general, the Total War Warhammer series, if they're going to do more to sell, they're likely going to do more free stuff. And I could imagine a few things. We've spoken about two of them in the past. One of them being VIKRAM Van Horseman. I don't think that there's going to be another Tzeentch DLC. I just don't think there's anything else. Unless Creative Assembly get like access to something that Games Workshop had in the vaults for like Tzeentch plans back in the day, which may or may not exist. Like, there could be a possibility, but I could just see them going, hey, look, just do VIKRAM as a free character, boom, done, that's it. Because they already technically have like a chosen unit with the flying dudes, even though they're not really, they don't have any mutations or anything, but like they are kind of cool, I'm not going to lie. The Doom Knights are really, really cool. Like that's a unit I really hope end up being on the tabletop. It might actually incentivize me to paint up some Tzeentch warriors. So yeah, VIKRAM, simple enough. I think people would lose their minds for that because a lot of people were expecting him for Shadows of Change as the Free Lord and he didn't come in for one reason or another. So I could see this happening. I could see him as a big thank you to everyone, right? The next one would be Volton. So yeah, big character, 3 different forms. You'd have him on foot, then you'd have him mounted, and then you'd have him like fully armored as the Exalted of Sigmar, blah, 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 which would be a bit weird considering that the horse is actually Tyrion's mount. But yeah, you know, you just make do. These are characters that we spoke about in the last video, so I don't think there's a lot to talk about here, but Volton is an End Times very specific character. Well, Storm of Chaos also, but it was like the same premise for the Storm of Chaos as it was the End Times. It was supposed to be like the end of the world situation, so I think that this works out really well here. But I could also imagine a third. So, to celebrate like the end and also not doing a DLC for Bretonnia, which I imagine they don't want to do because it was a free race and they might take some flack for it, or they think they'd take some flack for it. I think Bohemond Beastslayer could be possible here as a FLC Legendary Lord. So you'd have Volton as a hero, you would have VIKRAM as a Lord, but then Bohemond Beastslayer as a Lord also. Keep in mind, in the art book, once again, well, not him, but his lance was there. So it's clear that they had some sort of a plan for him. The Chimera is going to be in Tides of Torment, so I could see this going like, yeah, Bohemond Beastslayer wouldn't be using that many unique mechanics, so, well, I think they could do some unique mechanics, but he wouldn't be having unique animations. He's a Lance Lord. I mean, there's not really a lot there, right? So, yeah, another Bretonnian Lord takes us up to 5, which I know sounds like a lot, but I think maybe this could mean that we could get some sort of a rework for Bretonnia. You know, a final rework just to kind of fix up the last stuff. Maybe finally have a Crusade mechanic, because they do kind of call for a Crusade during the End Times also. I've not talked about like unique mechanics for the other factions and so on. It's mostly because like I just want to get into like the possible content, and then we are going to wait until the end of the year, see what gets confirmed. If I'm right, boom, let's start talking about mechanics. But Bohemond Beastslayer, some Crusade mechanics for Bretonnia, and then they can call it a day. While I would love to see a Brigand DLC for Bretonnia, I don't think that's going to happen. It's one of those stuff that got lost so far back in lore. We don't know if Games Workshop really confirmed them as canon anymore. You do have exiled knights and stuff like that, which you can use like a Brigand-styled army, but that's Old World, it's a different IP, it becomes a little bit of a legal issue. So, yeah, I mean, this would work out well. Essentially, this would be, what, 7 Legendary Lords jumping in one go? Maybe more if they want to be a bit more generous. This is kind of the expectation for something which would be considered the biggest DLCs, or one of the biggest DLCs for the trilogy. You never know what it could be. It could be something completely different. Hell, they could just go and surprise us with something else, but I feel like this is kind of realistic to think about. I guess we'll find out later this year. I wanted to talk about it now because I figured it'll probably be better to do that now, because we know that this month they're going to be doing something for Tides of Torment, right? They're supposed to be saying what's changed from what we've originally seen and, you know, some future plans and stuff. So I figured, get this out of the way now, look towards Tides of Torment straight after, and then just kind of wait and see what's going on with the anniversary stuff. It's been quiet, and that's true. It's been very, very quiet, but I've still got hope in the game. Call it hopium, copium, or whatever. But I'd rather have a little faith than go into full Doom mode. Should it get, like, very, very quiet? Yeah, fine. But, yeah, you know, the anniversary stuff has already been kicking off. They've been celebrating with some older titles, which I think is kind of cool. They've been looking at mods. They've been, like, doing a little bit of everything, which is lovely. It's just not a lot of news. Give it some time. We know in August there's going to be some information, and then see where it goes from there. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. I do apologize, this is going to be a late video, but I have been busy today. I've been sorting out so much paperwork because I am planning on moving, and it's a lot more than I expected in terms of paperwork. Oh boy. I've barely been able to paint lately, which really does suck, because I've been hankering to paint up some orcs. I've got the battalion box like pretty much built up and primed, and I'm dying to paint some orcs. I don't know why. But yeah, have a good day, guys. I'll see you all again very, very soon.